Hey guys, this is Rob, and today I wanted to talk all about journaling. Journaling your psychedelic experiences to use it as a tool for part of your integration process. And the reason I'm doing this is I was digging through some shit and I came across one of my old journals from one of my ayahuasca retreats in the Sacred Valley. And I was reading through it, and then I thought this was a sort of a good example of journaling done correctly. I don't always do it this well. Sometimes I don't journal at all. But I thought this was a good example of when I did it right. And what I'd like to do is I'm just going to share it with you. I'm not going to do it as like a kind of a blow by blow reading through my journal as you know, just narrating it to you. What I'm really going to talk about here is, I'll certainly show some examples. What I'm going to do here is talk more about the process of what I was sort of thinking about as I wrote this and what I expected to be able to get out of it. And also the kind of the ways that I used it as I was going through that process, how I referred back to this in order to sort of keep me in line, keep me on my intention, keep me grounded. What I will do though, is at the end of this video, I'll take stills of each page of this, and if you want to, you can read through them at your own leisure and see just kind of like some of the stuff here was, definitely going a little bit batshit. And I think that's kind of like, that's part of the process of one of these psychedelic retreats, is that you are going through a kind of like a process of like orchestrated insanity to sort of like deconstruct yourself and then put yourself back together again in some kind of new, improved way. And I think I accomplished that on this particular retreat. And I know it might be of interest to some of you because I know some of the guys who watch this channel were actually on that retreat with me. So you guys will get a special kind of insight into what the fuck was going on with me at that time. So let's dive a little bit into the process of journaling and why I think it's useful as an integration tool. So I started off here writing a page of what my intention was for this retreat. And really this was just kind of all the stuff going through my head of like, why did I sign up for this? And I basically I kind of splurged out. I think one of the things here which I initially used to get really hung up on when it came to journaling is trying to make it some kind of like literary work of art, which is just not the point of it at all. And what I sort of accepted with this one was just forget that. This is not, no one's going to be particularly impressed by the scribblings that you put in here. It's not for that. It's a tool just for you to sort of get it out. So I managed to turn off that kind of control freaky part of myself and instead just kind of blurted it all out. So, okay, why am I doing this? And I was kind of like, okay, I was just spelling stuff out. Some of this stuff you guys have already heard. Again, if you want to see the details, skip to the end and look at the page of details. But this is stuff around my mother. This is stuff around me feeling emotionally blocked. And I just put it out blow by blow. And the purpose of this was so that this is how I felt before. I started this journaling weeks before I went on the retreat. So this is probably about 2 or 3 weeks out before I actually landed at the retreat. And so and in that sort of period, obviously you know this retreat's coming up. You might start sort of feeling, anxiety and sort of like, why did I do this? And all these kind of feelings are swirling up. So, and I wanted to make sure that when I got there, that I could accurately relay this to the facilitators and to the shaman. Because this, once you're there and you're in it, you are then going through the process and your mind's already changing. So I wanted to make sure that the stuff that was in my head when I was sober, for want of a better word, is what I was communicating. When I got there and I had my initial meeting with the shaman and facilitators, I pretty much read this page out. So I knew that this without feeling kind of like intimidated by the shaman or without feeling like sort of, like I had to perform as like a sort of, I'm a damaged individual. This is me in the clear light of day. Okay, guys, this is where I'm coming from. This is my problems. I put some notes here regarding my sort of medical conditions of epilepsy, being prone to panic attacks and having sort of chronic pain in bits of my body, just to make sure that I got these things out because, again, you want to make sure you're disclosing everything to these people. And sometimes I know it sounds stupid, but you can just forget shit. So I made a note here. And this page, this first page of this journal served me really well. I felt that when I got in there and I had these initial meetings, I'd covered all the bases. It was like, okay, here's my mental problems, here's my physical problems. Are we good? Do we know what, are we all on the same page here? And they were, you know, what kind of dosages should I be having? What kind of experiences am I looking to have? It was all pretty much sorted, and that was because I'd done this prep work. I'd done this little bit of homework here. This next, again, this is what I'm writing a couple of weeks before I get there. These are like my bullet points. This is my go-to stuff, so that when shit starts hitting the fan, I can refer back to this page and it kind of grounds me. This is stuff like, you are not a victim. Don't let these things define your life. Listen to yourself. Again, so this is the kind of stuff whereby when you get to sort of like day, 3, or you're having one of these kind of like long dark night of the soul type experiences I've talked about in another video, I can come back here and go, right, yeah, I remember now. This is what I signed up for. The shit is not necessarily hitting the fan. This is pretty much as expected. So I think like having something like this, as well as having, very detailed stuff of what you want to achieve, just have a few points which you can refer back to. And yeah, again, this helped me a lot. So then the next few pages are more of like a diary in the days leading up to it. So 5 days to go, I'm talking about sort of like where my mental state is. Obviously, as you get closer to one of these retreats, things start escalating and you start thinking, you've got a lot of shit on your mind around traveling and packing and all that kind of nonsense. But I thought it was useful to just kind of journal out stuff like, okay, this is where my mind's at. Is there any sort of new thoughts that are coming to the surface as a result of this? You sign up for a retreat or you sign up for a certain psychedelic experience with one mindset. But then as you get closer to that thing, other distractions start popping in. And sometimes they can be valid distractions or sometimes they can be not so valid distractions. One of the ones that came out that I noticed here, and I've noticed this on a few of my retreats, is that as I run up to when my mind should be in the game and like I should be focusing on my experience, I start getting distracted by chronic pain. I suddenly start like, oh, my shoulders really hurt. Oh, why is my shoulder hurting? Like, oh, my knees hurt. Oh, I'm on my back. And suddenly, all I can think about is like chronic pain in my body, which is there anyway. It's always that, but it just becomes very distracting. And I realized this is me trying to take my mind off the actual real work which I'm supposed to be doing. So 2 days to go, yeah, I'll read this page. I can see I'm beginning to shit my pants and like thinking, why did I do this? And all that bravado is kind of dropping out of me. So yeah, I still put some good things here. Meditate, examine the feelings, don't let them run away with you. Yeah, I did a lot of writing around the actual trip to Peru because this is one that I really struggle with. Just the amount it can mess you up, this sort of traveling. You don't realize things like the jet lag and the amount of traveling. You have like a 24-hour period of just kind of traveling to get there. And it completely fucking screws me up. But this on this particular trip, it actually went quite well. I was feeling pretty up for it as I came out of it. Okay, so from this page onwards, this is like the journal proper. This is when I've arrived at the retreat and I'm starting to sort of write down the stuff as I'm going through the process. One of the things I tend to do a lot is just draw very crappy little drawings of something that's going on with me. And the theme of this retreat was facing the mountain. I'd kind of realized I had this mountain of problems to face, to deal with. And I visualized that as sort of me as this little matchstick figure sort of in front of this kind of huge mountain. And I think a lot of this imagery came from a video game I was playing at the time, and I used quite a bit of the music in some of my trip reports. A video game called Celeste, which is, again, it's about a girl who is suffering from depression, who decides to overcome that depression by climbing up a mountain and believes that by doing so she will overcome the demons within herself. And it's a great game, by the way. So yeah, I kind of borrowed that imagery and I went with this as well. So I was like, okay, so here I am, I'm as an adult, and I've realized I've got this kind of mountain of things to face. So yeah, I am the small figure at the bottom, but I'm not going to be daunted by just the quantity of what's in front of me, and I'm gonna face it, and it is an overwhelming prospect, but I'm gonna face it. So again, this was something I used as a theme. I quite liked this idea as well. I've used this in a few of my other sort of trips. So there's one thing about having an intention. This is what you want to get from the sort of experience, maybe like a mantra or something like that. But I also try and have a kind of a theme. So here I talk about like the day of arrival at the retreat again. So these journals are a kind of a combination of a sort of a stream of consciousness and a diary. And yeah, this one, it's talking about when you first get there, you're introduced to like the group who you're going to be spending, the next like 7 days with. These are always quite anxiety inducing moments for me because I'm not a particularly social person. I'm sort of struggle with these sort of big groups, and you never know. When I say big groups, it was about 20, 25 people, I think, in that particular group. You never know whether you're going to be in a mixture of people like me, who, or people who I like, or people who can tolerate, or people who I just think are full of shit. And as you've probably seen for some of my videos on this channel, I've got I'm not very good at hiding my disdain for bullshit. And obviously, events like this, just naturally you get, certain very hippie-ish people, and you do get to some sort of conspiracy people type. You certainly get some sort of hipster people type. You get people who are just incredibly, damaged and in need of help. You get some, very genuine people. You get a whole mix of people, and yeah, you're kind of like rolling the dice. So it's like, okay, who am I going to get this time? Who am I going to like? Who am I going to hate? And yeah, and so day one for me is always a very sort of anxious thing. I did write here, group seems okay, usual mix of damaged people and explorers. And yeah, and then I think one thing here I was kind of noting was like my own needs to be liked and accepted by a group. But also my own needs to just I very much like to just have my own space. So again, it's a tricky thing to balance in one of these retreat situations, like your own space to process what's going on with you. But there is a group dynamic. You're having meals together, you're going through ceremonies together. So yeah, it's a weird one. I think that's one of the reasons I actually quite like these retreats. It challenges me in that way. Because left to my own devices, I will just happily sit there, on my own and not interact with anyone, and I find that a lot easier. So I consider the whole thing as a bit of a challenge to my norm of being put into one of these group situations. There's another interesting line in this part of the journal where I talk about receiving attention as a result of this actual YouTube channel. So by the time I did this retreat in the Sacred Valley, I knew beforehand that I was going to be meeting a couple of people who would watched this channel. And I sort of realized that was like bringing out a certain like egotistical quality on me. I was kind of like feeling like, I'm a pro, like people know me. And this was something I remember struggling with on that retreat. Everything I was doing, I was started to think about, how am I going to report this? In what way am I going to make a video out of this? And to the point where that just became like the primary sort of focus, or at least it was starting to intrude and sort of take over. I'm like, oh yeah, I could do this like this, I could do that like this, I could do this like this. And I had to constantly dial myself back and saying, dude, fucking, you didn't come here to make videos about this. You came here to go through this process. And if you make videos about it, that's fine, but the fucking videos come later, dude. Just it was a struggle to separate out the kind of the needs of the channel, the needs of the Adeptus Psychonautica Rob persona from the needs of Rob, the individual. So again, just writing this out highlighted that to me and was useful as a tool to pass out those two Robs, for want of a better word. So now I get to, on this page, this is day 2, and so this is before the first ayahuasca ceremony. And I talk a little bit about the mindset I was in. And there's a couple of good things on this page here, which I think are useful to anyone. It's a good bit of advice to anyone who's going to go through one of these processes. You don't have to do anything. You know, I've seen people, and I've certainly done this myself, is get on one of these retreats and suddenly it's kind of like you're on death row. It's like you're like, why the fuck did I do this? Did I really want to do this? Like all this bravado and bullshit. Like, and I think that can sort of snowball into like, and I think it's useful just to remind myself, you don't have to do anything. You know, there is no sword hanging over your head. And this is literally what I've written here. Like, you can not drink this ayahuasca. It's fine. You don't have to. But remember, using this, what you've written here, remember why you wanted to do this. You came here with a set of reasons. Read those reasons. Are they still valid? You know, in the cold light of day, you can, looking back to how you were 3 weeks ago, if this is still valid, then you've got a reason to do it. But don't feel like you're in this kind of moment of like, you know, in the actual, like, shit, what am I fucking doing here? I'm in fucking South America, what the fuck? Like, I'm having a brief moment of clarity which tells me that this ceremony is probably going to be okay and I need to listen to that voice more. So yeah, this is me kind of like coming down from my own bullshit and sort of just kind of recognizing that, okay, yeah, I actually want to do this. So yeah, I went for it. And again, I noticed that my knees are hurting again. Like I talked about earlier with these things being like some kind of literary masterpiece and just, you know, just get your ideas down. I remember when you tend to see other people's journals, and when you're on one of these groups, I remember there were some people who were very artistic types, and their journals were just exquisite. They would have these stunning visualizations of their experiences and all these kind of thematic memes and stuff like that. And I used to just, like, again, I'm looking at my sort of pictures of like fucking matchstick men and mountains, and I used to feel completely inadequate that I wasn't expressing things to the same level as they were. You've got to get over that. I think I did it better here than I have done in other ones. In other retreats I'd been on, I just looked at my stuff and just thought, fuck this. This is not worth having. Look at what she did. Oh, it's amazing. Look at all her, you know, and got all these sparkly metallic felt pens, and someone's painting a fucking mural, and someone's writing poetry, and I'm like, stick man, mountain. Fucking, I used to feel very inadequate about it. So a lot of pages about just what I was going through. I'm going to skip ahead to day number 6, which was, for me, was like the pivotal moment of this retreat. And as you can see, I wrote a lot of stuff about it. So yeah, this was, I had this kind of full-on like breakthrough experience, and just everything was going really crazy. And I really started drawing out a lot of stuff here. And what your guys might be interested in is that this is where the kind of the pictures that I use in the background of my sort of channel, my logo, this is the actual experience where they came from. So I really started seeing a lot of these things, like these kind of faces, and these kind of, you know, these pyramid shapes, and this kind of guy who's got this kind of like wobbly hand. This all came to me from this experience, and that's why it's kind of so thematic in my channel, because to me this means something. And I have talked about, I think I did a video about this previously around sort of like DMT, explaining, get my fucking words out, interpreting DMT visions. And yeah, one of this is where it came from. It was one of those classic psychedelic moments of this means something. And I don't know what it means, but it means something. And I integrated that into this channel, into the background. But yeah, I liked the crapness of these pictures. Again, it was just important for me to capture these things, because I think if I hadn't managed to get these things down, if I hadn't been willing to just be crap with my art and sort of my descriptions of him, like friendly smile and blip blip blip, and yeah, this meant something to me, then this would have been lost. And I do think this imagery, it is like a key part of my kind of like psychedelic archetypes. And it's very easy to when you're having these experiences to think, I'm going to remember this forever. This is burned into my brain now. And then as you sort of come back out those, you realize how slippery they are, and it just starts sliding away from you so quickly. And I think this would have been lost to me if I hadn't put it into the journal. And I did put it into the journal, and it means a lot to me. And yeah, it might not mean anything to anyone else. It might just be shitty line drawings. But that's kind of like the point of these experiences. It is a very personal experience, and I'm glad I was able to sort of like capture, to just sort of distill down these little, philosopher's stones of meaning into something which I could then think about some more and talk about some more. And I enjoyed that. I'm glad I did it. So one of the other things that came out of this retreat, which I think comes out of most retreats, you get towards like the end of it and you start thinking about like, okay, this has changed me forever, and I'm going to do all these things. My life is going to be completely turned around. And again, this is what I did. I wrote out some sort of goals of things I would do. I think here I was a lot more realistic in what I did. You remember like sort of, some of my early experiences, you think I'm going to do this. So, in 3 months' time, I'll have learned a new language, I'll learn a musical instrument, I'll have written a play, I'll have changed job, I'll have done all this shit. And yeah, I wrote some kind of much more basic stuff here. Like one of them was just tidy up my living space, which is, I was living in a messy space, and just tidying up and having that bit of structure, it really helped me. So when you're doing this, it's good to set yourself some goals, be realistic with your goals. I think it's better to have 4 or 5 little things which are very achievable, rather than have, I'm going to become an entrepreneur and fucking make the new Facebook that's not a toxic shithole. Just keep it small. Little bits of progress are still progress. So it's worth doing. It's even, clean your room. Again, I'm sounding like Jordan Peterson here, who I love, but yeah, clean your room. It fucking makes a difference. On this page here was where I got down some of the lessons that I learned. And again, this ties back into what I was saying about the imagery I was talking about before, and that you get these lessons and you think that they're going to stick with you forever, but they don't necessarily. So get them down on a page as soon as you can. Look at the big picture. Don't look at how shit you necessarily feel on Tuesday. Look at the big picture of your life. Are things on the right trajectory? And it's good to sort of, remind yourself of that. Don't be frustrated that you don't have all the answers. You're working on them. They will come. This shit takes time. It's going the way it should. These were the lessons that sort of came to me. Not everything has to be a fucking miracle, or some sort of like life-changing sort of experience. In fact, it is a life-changing experience just by making the little changes. And don't forget that, some people get very hung up on, a miraculous transformation. I would say just focus on the little things. The little things are miraculous just on their own. So yeah, I liked that I got down these lessons, and when I look back on them now, I think I did a good job of integrating these into my life. And that's kind of one of the key things from these journals. It's, you get it down, and then as you go into this, what we call the integration phase, this is what you can refer back to, so that you don't start thinking like, oh, I thought I was going to change the world and I've done fuck all, oh, I'm so useless, and you get all depressed. Like, actually, no, you recognized at the time that, you're going to make small changes and that you're on the right path. So keep with it, keep your sort of focus on the stuff that what was important at the time. You want to make sure that it wasn't all for nothing, that you go through this experience, you capture a little bit of magic from the psychedelic ether, get it down so that you can refer back to it, because it will sort of, we are only human, it will sort of like dissolve back into like that sort of thing. Oh, did anything actually happen? Did anything change? I mean, it doesn't happen automatically. You have to change it. So you have to capture what it was, what you learned, so that you can start making those changes. That's the work. That's the work of psychedelics. It doesn't come for free. Yeah, I guess the overall gist from these things is it's worth doing these journals, not just as a nostalgia thing like I'm doing now to look back. And this one's from 2 years ago. Yeah, so it's not just like a nostalgia thing. It's a very useful tool as you're going through it. And there were certainly some parts, I remember in that experience where I was on the edge of, anxiety, shitting my pants, sort of like, do I want to be doing this? What did I do this for? Am I just going through the motions here? Am I a fake? Am I just am I just a massive faker here? And by having this, it straightened me right out. So again, I just want to stress like the sort of the virtues of the journal. Even if, like me, you are like sort of artistically shit and, again, not like literary good at sort of putting stuff out, it's only got to mean something to you. Don't see it as a chore. Don't see it as something to be showing people like it's something awesome. It's not. It's a very personal thing, but it's a very useful thing. So I think that's it. Hopefully I've kind of waffled on there enough to sort of sell the virtues of journaling. What I'll do is I will take some still images and I'll leave them at the end of this video so you guys can flick through them and pause and read through them if you want to. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's particularly worth doing, but just if you're interested, I feel like it's a good thing to share. So yeah, I hope you guys found that useful. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys next time.